Hi guys, so tonight we're going to tie the Bann Valley Gosling Fly from the monthly fly tying pack. So the Gosling is a fly, I suppose I would have first came in contact with it to do with Loch Melvin, and where it is, I suppose it's a salmon fly, a loch salmon fly, but it takes its fair share of trout on lakes all over Ireland as well. Must have fly in your box, I think, for any loch fisherman. So we'll go ahead and tie the fly. So the hook is a long shank, size 10 hook here. So we'll just get it in focus and we'll proceed with the tie-in. Okay, so use whatever tying thread you have here. So generally a black, but what we're going to do for something a little bit different here is we're going to use a chartreuse tying thread. So we just start that off just behind the eye and take that back and snap it off. So this fly has a pheasant tail for its tail, and in this pack I actually have a hen pheasant tail. So hen pheasant is slightly different marked than your cock pheasant. Just adds a bit of difference to it. So take a bunch of that. Maybe 8 or 10 fibers, and tends to be long, so it tends to be at least the length of the body. I'll put that on and just tie it back to the bend and then tie it forwards. And trim it off. So next thing we're going to do is we are going to tie in our rib. So the rib is a gold oval. Take a length of that. Trim it off. I'm going to tie that in on the far side of the shank from myself and just sort of holding it out at a slight angle. And what that does is, as I wrap, it tends to slide the thread wrap down tight in behind the previous one and adds to the uniqueness of the whole thing. So next what we're going to do is we're going to look at the mallard feather. So the mallard feather will actually be one of the head hackles. However, there's a large variation in size in mallard hackles. So you get 2 feathers within a pack. So this one here, the fibers on it are very big. Okay, so if you wrap that, they would actually extend further back than the tail itself. And what we are aiming for it to come back sort of this far, but this feather here, when we wrap it, you'll see that it actually would do that. So we're going to use this feather, but I want to show you how to use a bigger feather if that was what was intended. So if you wanted to make use of this larger feather, what you'd have to do is create a fake hackle. So we'd strip the feathers or the fibers off that, and then what we'd do is we would come up here and we would tie them in, say halfway along their length. Basically whatever length you want to be poking out the back is what you would leave poking out forward. Okay, so we would tie it in like that, we would trim this back, then we would tie the body, etc., and then we would fold this back as a fake hackle. Okay, so that's another possibility for making use of the bigger feathers that are in your pack. But we will tie this fly with a standard wound hackle. So back to the back. What we want to do is to take a little bit of wax and wax our thread, and then we have like an orange yellow type supernatural dubbing here, and so we're just going to put that on and dub the body with it. So once we get it on and stretched along our thread, what we want to do is a couple of wraps just to catch a few of the fibers. Once they're caught, that will allow you to continue to spin this. Never let it go, it's always under tension, and it's passing from one set of thumb and finger to the next, and that will create a nice tight and neat dubbing rope. Then we'll take that forward and we need to leave room at the front here for the two hackles, so I'm just going to then, once I've got enough of my dubbing on, I'm just going to strip off whatever's left that is superfluous to needs and take a couple of turns in front. Okay, so this we can leave tight, or we can use a brush and brush it out if you want it to be shaggier. So just give it a bit of a rub. You could use a bit of Velcro or use a brush or use whatever you've got. Okay, so next what we're going to do is palmer the body, and for palmering the body we're going to use the yellow hackle from the pack. So we've broken off the base of it, stripped off the flue or the fluff, and we've left a little bit of bare stalk to tie in on here. So we just want to catch that in several turns, that'll hold in place, and then we want to palmer that backwards. So on with our hackle pliers, and I'm going to take one full turn at the front. If it was that I was just using this as the one hackle, I'd probably take 2 or 3 turns at the front here, but because there's going to be another 2 hackles in front of this, I'm only going to take one full turn, and then I'll travel backwards in as many turns as suits your taste for how heavy you want the fly or otherwise. Okay, so because it's a long shank hook, it's probably going to need 3 to 5, well, probably 4 to 5 turns on 3, I think would be a little bit of a push to stretch it out to. So I think you're probably going to end up with about 4 to 5 turns on. So we catch the hackle in at the back, and then we want to take our rib up in equal turns. Try for 5 turns if you can, that's the sort of standard. I'm just going to crack that hackle off at the back. If you're confident in your wrappings, you'll be able to do that. And then at the front we're just going to tie across our rib and keep it in place. Snip that off, and then this hackle here, I'm just going to pinch all around, and that'll just help everything lay back and have a nice flow to it. So next we're going to put on our orange hackle. So again, it's a genetic hackle, so just have a look through it and pick one that suits. What I'm looking for here is one that is probably slightly bigger than the yellow one that went before it. And again, we can either tie this in by its tip, or depending on what size you're looking. So if I look at the tip of this hackle, she's probably a little bit short compared to the yellow one, but if I go with the base of it, I have that little bit more length. So I'm going to go with the base of this one. So I'm just going to strip it off a little bit and tie that hackle on, and then I want to just wrap on, turn, stroke everything back and pinch it in place. That'll stop it from unraveling. Take a turn in front of it, same thing, stroke it back, and then tie it off. Again, how many turns is up to yourself. Just going to stroke all that back and just neaten it up backwards, tie back onto it. So, time now to take our mallard hackle. I'm just going to strip off the rubbish from that, and then I'm going to find the tip of it. I'm going to pinch it by the tip and catch it and fold all the fibres over to one side. Now there are some more advanced considerations for when you're doing this, but that's something for more for show flies, in that I would strip one side of it, and therefore it would all, because duck feathers tend to have quite a pronounced curvature to them, and it does help for it to lie better, but that's an advanced technique. So pull that onto one side, so we end up with it doubled. As ever, I have a doubling video that you can search for on my channel, and here I've just pulled the last few fibres forward, and I'm going to tie right on this last bit of stalk here. One turn, pull it good and tight, fold that back, and a couple of turns backwards over that to hold it in place, and then we're going to wrap that on. And again, the number of turns is up to yourself, but because they're quite short and stumpy feathers, you're really only going to get 2, maybe 3 turns out of it anyway. Once it come over the top there, I'm just tying over it. Pull that back, trim it off. Then I'm just going to fold it out there. That sort of separates all the fibres, and you can see now it becomes, it's almost like a halo effect to it. It's a very attractive pattern, and you can see why salmon would take a fancy to it. So now I'm just going to finish off the head. You can see why we needed to leave ourselves a bit of room. In fact, I could have probably even left a little bit more room, given the sort of number of turns of hackle and stuff that go on at the front of this fly. So, fly is tied. Just need to finish the head, so we'll take our needle and some clear varnish and just join the blade the whole way around. I use my nail just to run around then behind the eye, and that sort of removes any excess that goes forward. Then pass the needle through the eye. That'll take anything off that happened to be in the middle of it, and then just spin the needle around against your finger or something, and that is the fly tied. So that is the Gosling. As we said, I would have known it best as a salmon fly, but it will take both trout and salmon on lochs all over Ireland, especially mayfly time. So hopefully you liked the video and it gave you some inspiration to have a go with the pack, and stay tuned for other unboxings and other patterns. So happy wrapping.